Arizona fought through a physical and good Cincinnati defense and wore them down en route to a one-sided victory. Arizona 19-0, still unblemished. This is Postcast. Thanks for joining.
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into Postcast. Leif Thulin with you here on Locked On Wildcats. Arizona 77, Cincinnati 51. 26-point win. It didn't feel like a 26-point win. And why is that? It's because Arizona, I don't think, had some of their best players play their best. And they've fought their way to this win. Like, the tale of two halves is very real in this. We'll get to that and the numbers behind that in a moment. But my takeaways really are Arizona's depth is second to none. Arizona's size and physicality will always wear through a team. Even a large team, a team that is very good defensively, very stout defensively, and honestly, I thought controlled the pace of the game for 30 of the 40 minutes. Cincinnati played really well for 30 minutes. Arizona still never really looked like they were in danger. They trailed briefly, but led for the vast majority of this game and led for by 10 or more for much of the second half. The difference between these two teams is Arizona, despite having a poor offensive night, can sustainably generate shots. And when we talk about how they score, we always talk about paint points, paint-oriented points. We'll talk about the stats all behind it. But the overwhelming difference between these two teams was Arizona sustainably created good shots. They may have struggled early, and I'll have some numbers behind that. But they ended up, in terms of points in the paint, 48 for Arizona, 14 for Cincinnati, who can't shoot at all. Cincinnati went 4 of 21 from three. That's 19% from deep, and yet only could score 14 in the paint against this vaunted Arizona defense. Arizona, against a very good Cincinnati defense, only hit 3 threes. They went 3 of 13, meaning they went 24 of 50, which is 48%, and that was a bad number for Arizona, who shoots 58% from two. But they still scored 48 points in the paint and got to the free throw line 28 times. Arizona stayed with their recipe, even in a game where they really struggled. Now let's get to those first half stats because they really do matter. In what was a very close game, Arizona, I wrote in my notes, played a bad half, but were up 6. And then I wrote in my notes very early in the second half, Arizona starting to impose their will with depth and size because no one can match it. And even in that bad first half, they were dominant in the paint and led the turnover battle, also getting turnovers leading to touchdowns, meaning points off of turnovers. They were able to get downhill and score at times, but this was not an easy game. And I wrote this in the first half. Arizona dominating the paint, and Cincinnati's hitting mid-rangers and threes. They'll regress, and Arizona will progress. I timestamped this. The score was 20-20. Arizona was 8 of 23, and Cincinnati was 7 of 14. I'll take the team that's taken 9 more shots and has missed bunnies versus a team that's hitting a very difficult diet of shots. At that point, 2 of 7 from 3 and making a lot of difficult shots. At half, Arizona led 20-4 in points in the paint, 11 of 30 from the field versus 9 of 25, 1 of 7 from 3 versus 2 of 7 from 3, 20 points in the paint versus 4, like I said, plus 2 on the glass, plus 3 on the offensive rebounds, plus 11 points off of turnovers, and plus 6. It was 10 turnovers to 4 in favor of Arizona having fewer. So Arizona was the team that you knew was going to dependably continue to score, dependably continue to play their style of basketball without risk, without the risk of their numbers dropping. In fact, they would get better. And then there's the flip side. You can play badly and you can hold a Power 5 conference opponent with athletes, like real deal size and athleticism, to 51 points. 51 points. And even in a game where Jaden Bradley, I don't think was very good, I thought Koa Pete looked a little bit injured in the second half. I'll talk about that in the show that'll do after this, airing tomorrow morning. I felt like Koa Pete was a little banged up after, I think, rolling his ankle. And Jaden Bradley played poorly. Del Orso can't hit the broadside of a barn right now. And you're still able to power your way to 77 points against a team that concedes 65 per game, which is, I think that gets swept under the rug because Arizona usually scores around 90. But in this type of game, that's a lot of points because it was a barn, not a barn burn. It was a game that's a knock them down, drag it out type of game. And you see the intensity of Karchenkov, and that is what Arizona, that breathed life into the run in the second half. You see the dependability of Krivas and Awaka. And I think that I think that the issue that Arizona had in the first half was they were getting shots that were fine, but not good for them. They're fine because they're able to get into the paint dependably, but they're jump hooks from Krivas. They're turnaround jumpers from Pete. In the second half, they're getting all the way to the rack. You're seeing those seals that allowed Karchenkov to get to the rack and score. There's tip-ins off of rebounds. So if you look at the final box score, and you look at the offensive rebounds, 18 for Arizona. They had 18 second chance points. That looks normal. That did not look the part in the first half. Arizona was struggling to get second chances. They were struggling to get good looks. Arizona had 17 points off of turnovers as opposed to just one for Cincinnati, who lives off of turning teams over once every 5 possessions. Arizona only had 6 turnovers the whole game. So while I don't think it was great because Koa Pete and Jaden Bradley each were bad in my opinion. Pete was 5 of 8, 13 points, but I just didn't feel like he had an impact on the game. And Bradley had 8 points on 2 of 10 shooting. And I feel like the length, the size, and the depth of Arizona wore down a team that prides themselves on physicality. Every team Arizona has faced this season has not had the bodies to stay with Arizona for a full 40 minutes. Arizona just comes in waves, and even if they beat you by scoring 93 like they did against Florida, they beat you that way. If they beat you by holding you to 51 like they did today, they'll beat you that way. And I just think there are too many good players on this team to be held down. If you really want to dive into it, Bradley and Burries, the backcourt that I expected to score around 30 points in this game because that's around what they average combined, they went 5 of 21. Burries, by the way, had 10 boards. I thought he did a really good job sticking his nose in there, especially in the first half. And then Koa Pete, I didn't feel like it was a particularly large factor. He had 13. And then you get to, okay, who's going to step up then? Of course, Del Orso maybe. Well, Del Orso 0 of 5. He hasn't hit the broadside of a barn for a while. And I actually think that's a good thing because he's bound to improve. So Mo Krivas and Ivan Karchenkov, who I believe are two of the more important players on the team because they hold the defensive identity, step up and score 31 combined points on very good efficiency and are unbelievable defensively. And, of course, Tobe Awaka sticks his nose in there and gets rebounds and sets the tone defensively. Arizona did a really good job in the second half playing downhill and stifling Cincinnati. The defensive intensity was off the charts, and then they played more quickly and more decisively. Arizona shot 50% in the second half and held Cincinnati to 8 of 31 shooting. Cincinnati's best offense was shooting free throws, but they only got there a couple times. Cincinnati tried shooting threes to carve into the deficit, and they died by the 3. Teams try to shoot more threes than they're accustomed to against Arizona, and it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. Arizona has a way to score, and it may not be gorgeous. And today was, I think, a particularly bad one. But honestly, kudos to the defense of Cincinnati. But they'll find a way to score, and I'm not sure you can find a way to score against Arizona. I thought Krivas was great in big moments, and he was able to find his spots to take over. Karchenkov added fire. And you guys who listen to me all the time, I love Karchenkov. He is my favorite player on this team. I've said that all year. I said that when he played St. Mary's in the tune-up. I said, how is this guy not supposed to be the starter? He's awesome. And I posted those on Twitter, just the old links, because I wanted to, look back and see wow, this guy was awesome from the start. And Karchenkov was able to turn off what was the offensive identity for Cincinnati in the first half, which was Sean Abayev. Sean Abayev played really well. Jalen Celestine had a couple tough shots. Well, when Karchenkov was in, they started getting runouts, and Arizona scored fast break points. If you can't score against a defense that's very, very good like Cincinnati, you got to beat them when they're compromised, either on the glass or get runouts. And Arizona scored 18 second chance points, 14 fast break points, and 17 points off of turnovers. And then they also made 20 free throws. So Arizona did a good job in circumventing the issue that they had. They had a circuitous route to scoring 77 points. But if you score 77 points and you hold the team to shooting shots that are not in the paint, you're going to win because teams are not going to shoot Arizona off the floor. They run you off the line into a Mo Krivas, into a Tobe Awaka, and you're not going to score well there. And a team that cannot shoot and only hit 4 threes, only had 14 points in the paint. Think about that. They had 4 threes. It would be different if they had 14 threes and 14 points in the paint. They still probably lose to Arizona. So they hit four threes. That's 12 points and only 14 in the paint. And the rest of it, they had to shoot mid-ranges and free throws. Arizona's defense is incredibly sustainable. The offense also always going to be fine because you get good shots. And I think this is an important note. I don't know the context, but I'm looking in the chat, and it says he was fine. I'm nitpicking a 19-0 team. Yeah, we are allowed to nitpick on a 19-0 team because they're great. They're the best team in the country right now. And I think they are still improving. But the interesting part about this is that Arizona did have a bad first half and still won by 26. And they didn't get a good performance from either of their All-American candidates through the entire game. In other games, there's been a bad half, and then they turn it up and are fantastic. Like Koa was unbelievable in the second half in a recent game. Jaden Bradley against UCF, unbelievable in the second half after a non-factor first half. Neither of those guys did it, and they still won by 26 against a team that is top 7 defensively and looked the part. It wasn't like they had a bad defensive game. Arizona struggled to score 77 points and won by 26. Coming up next, we'll review the keys to the game I outlined to this one, see what Arizona did well. I think they're going to hit a couple of them, but not all of them. And we'll also talk about the grander scheme of things in the Big 12. We'll touch on that and much, much more coming up next in Postcast. And thank you guys for tuning in. The college football playoff came and went, and the FanDuel gave all the customers more ways to win and get in on the action every single day of the playoffs. There's NFL playoffs now, and every football playoff game day, FanDuel users get profit boosts waiting for them in the app. So then here's what I love about it. You can pick an underdog, you can pick a favorite, and whatever you see as the big-time play, the one that you're going to put your money on, you apply the profit boost and go after even bigger winnings. And when you win, FanDuel pays out instantly, which is perfect for playoff football. FanDuel's the best place to get into the action all playoff long. So visit FanDuel.com to get your what was college football playoff profit boost in every game day. You could also take your talents to FanDuel and win on the NBA, NFL, whatever you may like. So take your talents to FanDuel and make sure to tell them we sent you from Locked On. Welcome back to Locked On Wildcats Postcast. Checking through the comments, got some of the regulars in there. Thank you guys for tuning in. Rick, love this context. Cincinnati scored 24 points in the second half. Arizona was locked down, took the Bearcats out of their game. Yes and no. The yes is they were great on defense. They were great on defense the whole game. The no would be, I think Cincinnati played their game the whole time. It's just that Arizona is really, really difficult to score on in the way that Cincinnati tries to score. We talked about this in the keys, and I'll get to this to prove that point. Cincinnati is a terrible three-point shooting team, but they shoot a lot of them. They hit around 9 per game, but they shoot a lot of them. It makes no sense as to why. Well, they tried to shoot a lot of them. They only hit 4. The other part is they usually are good at getting to the rim. They still tried to. They just could not find success from 2. Like if you break this down into 2 points, like I just said, going to the break, they scored 14 points in the paint while playing a 7'2" center who I actually thought was pretty good in Cham from Senegal. And Baba Miller is an NBA player. He had 14 points, but he was a non-factor in the second half. Then you also look at it, and they had guys like Celestine who played the 4 at Baylor last year. Abayev's not small on the wings. Like, this is a big team. But they just could not get into the paint and find themselves normal good shots. Normal good shots were hard to come by. They had to settle and take difficult threes as opposed to ones that are good shots, and they're not good at shooting anyway. The other thing I'll tell you is that Arizona can guard against anyone, and my light is out, but I will keep persevering for you guys. The thing about Arizona that will always change the approach of another team is we've complained for different reasons in the last couple games. Let's go through our complaints of the number 1 team in the country. It was ASU, like, oh, ASU scored too many points. ASU pushed Arizona. Well, they hit extremely difficult shots. Mo Odom had 24 shots to score 23 points. That's not a good percentage, but he hit hard threes and really weird mid-ranges. Masamba Diop for ASU hit 6 mid-range jump shots in the first half. What ASU did was hit mid-range jump shots. What UCF did with Themis Folks scoring 30 was mid-range jump shots. And it's just unsustainable. Both those guys cooled off at different parts of the games. Fultz shot so many shots in the second half and was not good. And Odom, like I said, took more shots than he scored. It just looks bad because Arizona's giving up points when they usually don't, because many teams don't even take mid-range jump shots. Arizona's elite in terms of forcing you to do what they want. Cincinnati actually does that anyway. It just looked particularly bad because they wanted those shots. They just couldn't generate a good look against Arizona. Arizona makes you take very difficult shots that are anti-analytical. And they were actually punished for it against two guards. Mo Odom hit hard ones. Masamba Diop hit good ones for ASU. And Themis Fultz was great. Cincinnati didn't have anyone who could do that. Now let's review some of the keys I laid out. First key I gave was to win the glass defensively and win it decisively. Arizona's won all 18 games. Well, now it's 19 for 19. Arizona's pushed by UCF on the glass. Cinci is an even better defensive rebounding team than Arizona, very narrowly. And Arizona was dominant on the offensive glass because Cinci's not very good on the offensive glass. So I figured that may happen. Arizona won the glass 46-33, plus 13. They were plus 6 on the defensive glass and plus 7 on the offensive glass. And it also led to plus 9 in the offensive rebounds turned into second chance points. I said Arizona should win by 8 or more on the glass, and they did that. The next thing was I'd like to see them reach double digits in O boards and score double digits on second chances. Like I said, they did that. The next key I gave was limit turnovers, because the only way Cincinnati scores and scores enough to make this even a game, is what I believe I said, is they struggle to score so immensely. The only way they win is if they get runouts and score off of a slew of Arizona turnovers. Arizona did not concede any runouts. They gave up 6 turnovers against a team that forces one every 5th possession. So think about that. That would mean Arizona only had 30 possessions in this game. Well, spoiler alert, they had about 75. So they did a fantastic job giving up a turnover every 15th possession, more or less. And then they only gave up 1 point off a turnover, aka they fouled on a fast break attempt. So that was a superbly executed key. They did a great job of not making shooting themselves in the foot and giving a lifeline to Cincinnati. I'll be curious to see what happened in the 3-point battle, is what I wrote, and see what happens from 3, because I expect Cincinnati to take a lot of threes. I expect Arizona to shoot a couple, but they won't need to hit the 3. That was what I said. Well, that happened. Arizona took 13 threes, only made 3 of them, not particularly good, and 2 of them were late once the game was already in hand. But Cincinnati does need the 3 and does shoot it poorly, and it was basically make them hold under their 30% output of 3. They make up 35% of their offense from 3. Well, they scored 12 points off of 3-pointers, and they scored 51. So they actually almost pretty much hit their number, just about. And, they were 25% there, basically. And that's under their number, but their attempts was just on par. AKA Arizona locked them up and made them 2 bad threes, not open ones. And the goal would be make them live and die by the 3. I wouldn't say they died by the 3, but they certainly didn't help themselves, and limit Celestine and Abayev. Those are their best 2 shooters. Thomas will shoot his, but you can guard guys like that. Arizona's shut down Haggerty. They've made life very difficult for Odom. You've made guys who shoot the 3 off the dribble really struggle. It's leaving the open guys, like you gave ASU a couple open shots, and they had 2, relatively no names in conference play, hit 6 threes. So what happened is Abayev hit 2 early. Celestine hit 1, but the rest of the team only hit 1 other than that. And that was Rodriguez. And he was deep enough on the scouting report, I didn't even know. So I want that to be known. And the last one, and I saw someone in the chat mention this, I talk about POP, paint-oriented points. And this is a stat I made up. It is essentially, if you can put rim pressure, which is what Tommy Lloyd calls it, rim pressure equates to foul pressure, and it overwhelms teams. Why Arizona is so forceful is Arizona gets to the rack and makes life very hard for you to not foul nor give up a good basket. Like, you have to play really good defense and make them not score. And then even if you don't foul and they do miss, they get 40% of the rebounds. So what travels is size. Size travels. And Arizona, against a team that is equally as big as them, both against UCF and against Cincinnati, overwhelmed on the interior. So here's what they had in terms of paint-oriented points. Arizona had 48 points in the paint and 20 free throws. So that is 68 paint-oriented points. And I said it'll be hard to be above 60 in this game because it'll be a low-scoring game. My guess is Arizona will achieve that. And if they do, I don't see a way Cincinnati can stay close, likely trailing by 20 points. Well, it took a while to get to the 20 points because Arizona struggled immensely in the first half. And Cincinnati shot better in the first half. But they won by 26 and held the team to 51 points. And they scored 68 paint-oriented points against a team that scored 51 points. The craziest part, I just put this together, is Arizona hit 3 threes, and they scored 68 paint-oriented points. So they scored every point either from the paint-oriented points or a three-pointer. And I know that sounds like, okay, that makes sense. Of course, you're going to take most of your twos from in the paint. But think about that. Arizona forced Cincinnati to only 14 points in the paint, meaning that they had to shoot mid-range jump shots and difficult shots. Arizona was not stopped from scoring in the paint, even by a team that is number 7 defensively in the nation. They scored all their points from within the paint or at the free throw line due to rim pressure and paint pressure and just relentlessness. They did not settle for mid-range jump shots. They did not settle for difficult shots. Maybe their offense didn't look gorgeous today, but it was sustainable once again. A team that gives up 93 points per 100 possessions is what Cincinnati does. And Arizona scored 77, and my guess is about 75 possessions. If I had to chart it in my head, I would guess around somewhere between 73 and 77 possessions. So they were ahead of what a 1 point per possession, which is higher than what Cincinnati concedes, and they played poorly. Think about that. They played poorly, scored 77, won by 26. You can nitpick because it wasn't a superb performance from Arizona, but what you can't nitpick is the consistency of this team and just how downright relentless they are and how consistent they are. There are teams that I think A game can match up with Arizona's A game. But the A game for Arizona doesn't need to be there for them to win by 20. They can play poorly and win by 20 against Big 12 competition who's very good defensively. They can play poorly against a team and score 100 points. Like they played poorly against Alabama and ran them out of the gym in the state of Alabama. So there's one, they're able to navigate different styles of play better than I think any team in the country. They can outscore you or they can outdefend you, and on both extremes of each spectrum. And secondly, and more importantly, I think Arizona's got room to improve. They're not shooting well at all. Their shooters aren't shooting well at all. And they're not reliant on that at all. And their best 2 players have been iffy for about 4 games. I think all those things improve, and Arizona's still winning by 26 in Big 12 play. Coming up next, we'll look at what's ahead. It's West Virginia and BYU. We'll talk about that and a few more closing thoughts, and fire away some questions while I head to break here, and I'll address those in the closing moments of Postcast. Welcome back to Postcast. Leif Thulin with you here. I want you guys to answer this question in the chat. If you were to have a wish list of what you'd like Arizona to improve upon throughout the rest of Big 12 play, and I don't want you to say like shooting, because Arizona's shooting 37% from 3. Like the odds are that you're not going to get better. You're probably actually going to get worse. But I want you to kind of give me a specifically catered thing that you think Arizona can improve upon, should improve upon, and what that level takes them to. Because the reason I ask that is I think there are a couple things that do stand out that Arizona can improve upon, probably will improve upon, and yet they're 19-0, and I don't think have been particularly close to losing. Like, just think about that, and I think they're getting better. So the interesting part to me is when you play West Virginia concedes 63 points per game. 63 points per game, it's really low. They don't score particularly well, so they played a team in Cincinnati that's very similar there as well. So you play a team like that, UCF had size, Cincinnati had size, then you go play West Virginia, far smaller. And they kind of are like TCU in that regard. I think Arizona overwhelms them. I'll do a preview show. That'll be coming out for Friday. But I think Arizona overwhelms West Virginia, and I think they win by around 20 points. And then you go in 20-0 to play BYU. That's the matchup I talked about since October, as Arizona should start 7-0 in Big 12 play. And they're 6-0 right now. I think pretty clearly they're going to beat West Virginia, and they play BYU. I do think there's credence to Rick's point here. I'll put this up on the YouTube. Rick says, Big 12 schedule, West Virginia Saturday, and then a Monday against BYU seems unfair. I was thinking the same. I don't love it. The good thing is that Arizona plays at home, so they don't have to travel right now, and it's at noon. So it's not a particularly late game, and then you'd probably fly out Sunday. The thing that's hard is you got to get acclimated to altitude in Provo, and that's difficult. But the thing that I do like about Arizona is they've got significantly better depth than BYU. So if this game is played with a pace that I expect it to be played, I think it wears down BYU more than Arizona despite travel. I do agree that's a good point. And what I'm seeing in this chat is inbounds plays. I do like that. I think that's true. I do think if there's something Tommy Lloyd could improve upon, it's ATOs, out of timeout execution. And the thing about that is I don't think they look to score off of it enough. I think they look to get it in and then just survive because they're good offensively. I agree they could be better at a scoring on quick hitters. But if that's what we're nitpicking, then like we're in great shape, right? The other part I would point out as something Arizona I think could improve upon is in transition, Jaden Bradley doesn't really throw it ahead to guys streaking in transition. I think Arizona could be even more electric when they turn teams over. When they turn teams over, they should score more because they've got size and athleticism to really run. Koa Pete ran the floor and Bradley overthrew him on a lob. I also think that Karchenkov was ahead of a couple plays, and they didn't hit those guys. I feel like they had some missed chances. You'd love to hit more threes. Like I said, that's going to be a common gripe. Casey Jacobson was talking about that both on my show about a month ago and also on the broadcast today. He said, yeah, like it could hurt them that they don't hit a ton of threes. I will correct him, though. He said the last team to win with freshmen was the Kentucky team in 2012. It was actually the 2015 Duke team that had Tyus Jones at point guard, and he was talking about 3 freshmen starting. It was Tyus Jones, Jahlil Okafor, and Justice Winslow in 2015. So while his point stands, it is rare. I also like to point out the counter of very rarely are there teams that employ 3 starting freshmen. So therefore, of course, the numbers sparing of the champions that have emerged. And Kentucky and Duke had good success because they had good talent. Arizona's got great talent. They also have size and depth that very few teams can match. And I do like this one. Increased free throw percentage. I think it's rare to win a championship when shooting poorly from the line. And Pete, I don't think you're ever going to get 80%. I think you can get to 70. I think right now Koa Pete's a little shaken for confidence, not necessarily in terms of like, oh, I can't score. I think it's just the inconsistency of getting into foul trouble and the inconsistency of the whistle. Like he's allowed to be bludgeoned on one end and he touches someone, he gets a foul. And I think it's just rattling him a little bit. Koa Pete's going to be just fine. I assured you guys coming out of non-conference play into conference play that he'll be just fine. He had 24 in that first one. He'll be just fine. I expect Koa Pete to have a good game against West Virginia. I expect Arizona to be 20-0 come Friday or come Saturday. And then Monday, I will be in Provo, and I cannot wait for that game. I'm going to have a postcast and live from the Marriott Center. I'm trying to decide, do I go talk to Tommy Lloyd at the press conference or do I just go live right after the buzzer? You guys let me know in the comments. Thank you guys for tuning in as always. And I will see you guys for tomorrow's show where I break down this game further, talk about Koa's struggles a little bit. And then on Friday's show, I'll preview the West Virginia battle that'll bring Arizona to 20-0. Spoiled my prediction now, but you guys knew I was going to take Arizona all the way. Thanks for tuning in as always. Really appreciate all you guys for tuning in. The everydayers especially, Tyler, Rick, you guys are always in here, and I appreciate you guys. Thanks for tuning in. Bear down, and let's keep going. This is a great team. Enjoy it.